Okay, this is Richard Hsu, host of Hsu Untied, and today I'm very pleased to have with me as my guest Steve Carlson, who's a partner at Robins Kaplan. Steve, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Richard. Pleased to be here.
So you definitely have one of the most or more unusual backgrounds I've seen. I do a lot of these interviews. I've talked to a lot of lawyers, but let me ask you maybe just to start why you went to law school in the first place.
Well, it's funny. I'm a chemistry major originally, and I had no plans at all to go to law school. And I went off to the Peace Corps after undergraduate, and I was talking Berber, talking Arabic, talking French, and my country director said, "Steve, you don't want to go back to the lab. You like to talk. Go be a lawyer." and it was in my family. My father was a lawyer, so I listened to her and actually re-upped. I stayed a third year in the Peace Corps, took the ferry up to Spain to take the LSAT, and somehow I got into Yale. I said, "Hey, sounds good. Let's go."
Interesting. So what was your original plans when you had the chemistry major? Were you thinking about becoming a doctor, or what were you thinking about at that time?
I was going to be a soil scientist. Go study dirt.
Interesting. And what were your interests in high school? I mean, what is a high school kid who studies chemistry? What kind of interest did you have in high school?
I was going into college. I was going to be a botanist. I was in the environmental movement. I was the head of the recycling club, the head of the environmental issues committee in high school. Really passionate about the environment, and that led me into biology. And then really chemistry, I really fell in love with in college.
What made you decide to go to the Peace Corps after college?
My dad and my brother were Navy, and that's wonderful. I felt the calling for the Peace Corps. I think I trace it back to the postage stamp. Remember from the 70s, this postage stamp, the Peace Corps stamp, and I collected stamps, and that, I don't know, that stuck in my head. And I saw a poster in college, and one of my physics teachers professors was a Peace Corps guy, and I don't know, it freaked out my mom when I told her I wanted to go in the Peace Corps. I know that much.
Where did you do the Peace Corps in? Where was it?
In Morocco.
And how did you like it? How did you enjoy it?
Oh, it was a classic experience. I was way up in the boonies in the Atlas Mountains, the high Atlas Mountains. I was in a mud hut. I had no running water, no electricity. There was no paved road. I spoke, if you want to speak, you spoke Berber. So my Berber was pretty good. Some Arabic, and it was a great time.
What kind of language is Berber? What's it related to? Is it related to Arabic? I don't even know that language at all.
That's a good question. It's not Arabic. They think maybe the Phoenicians or maybe Germanic tribes made their way down, but it's really different. It's a very different unto its own class of languages. And
you learned that when you were there?
Very much. I mean, I had very little training in it. You just kind of get dropped down to this village, and you pick up a notebook, you walk around with the kids, and they teach you nouns and verbs, and soon enough you're talking Berber.
Yeah. And what alphabet do they use? Is it the Arabic alphabet?
Well, yes and no. The Berber language, when I was there, it was unwritten. There's been a revival since then with the Arab Spring. There's also Berber Spring. But when I was there, Berber was unwritten. And so I was lucky to learn a language that is purely oral.
Wow.
And it's not easy to learn those. It's a different set of skills to hear it all and then kind of build it into yourself, to internalize it.
Well, how does somebody initially teach you the language? I mean, somebody must have been bilingual. I mean, who tells you this word means that in English?
You get a little note. I remember very well this little notebook I had. And you get the kids, like the 10-year-olds. These little boys will walk around with you in the fields and point to stuff. And you say, "What's that? What's that? And what's that do?" And that you get your verbs, right?
Yeah.
And you just get it. Now, we had a little training in the Peace Corps, but it was mostly in Arabic. And so the Berber, I learned almost all of it on the fly.
Interesting. So now, when you go to the Peace Corps, do you get to choose where you go, or they just send you somewhere?
These days you get to pick a little bit, at least. You can, but back then you just sign up and they ship you off to somewhere. Yeah, I had no say in it.
Interesting. Interesting. So what did you think? So you go to law school kind of on a whim. Somebody makes a suggestion, what did you think when you got to law school? Did you like it?
It was hard because I came in out of the sciences, out of chemistry, and in chemistry, there's a right answer, right? The science is kind of pushing out that envelope of knowledge, right? And there's an answer. And It took me a little while to realize in law school that's not how the game's played, right?
Yeah, right.
It's being able to argue either side of the point and try to torpedo the answer, right? So that was a shift. I got it, but it took probably a year to really kind of settle into the new groove.
Mm-hmm. And did you like it ultimately? I assume so.
Yeah. I mean, what was fun is at Yale, I started up the Yale Law and Technology Society, and we made a little logo and got letterhead, and then you sent off letters to the head of the patent office or the federal judges or whatever, and you say, hey, please come talk to our group. And they show up, right? You take them out to dinner and you wine and dine the head of the patent office, the federal judges. You go to the Maury's and you see the a cappella singing, and it was a lot of fun. That was a great part of the experience.
Now, did you know when you went to law school you would become a litigator? I mean, obviously you're a litigator now. Did you know that at the time, or tell me how that kind of evolved?
Yeah, absolutely not. I thought I wanted nothing of the litigation game, but I was at Yale. I was going to go into like technology transfer, tech licensing. That spoke to me.
Right.
But being at Yale, I got a federal clerkship, and actually 2 federal clerkships, the district court and then the federal circuit. And you do those, those are great experiences. And then you realize, hey, I'm at the top of the game here. 2 federal clerkships. Let me go try this out. Yeah. And as soon as I got to practice at Waugatchel, I loved it. I really liked the litigation. Just the puzzle of it, just kind of I think of like jigsaw puzzle, but you actually make the piece, you got to find the piece, that you got to make the piece a little bit, and got to shave them down, and then you put this puzzle together. And I love that experience.
Which, who in the federal circuit did you clerk for?
Judge Michel.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So how has your practice evolved now? I mean, obviously you do patent litigation. What kind of technologies have you done, or what are the range of technologies you tend to work on?
Oh, it's great. So we're doing a medical device case right now involving glaucoma technology, doing actually a sex toy case right now. It's kind of interesting. NFT related technology. That's actually more of a trade secret case I'm doing. Software for music playing, breast pumps, a whole bunch of stuff.
What is the most challenging technology that you've ever had to wrestle with as a
the hardest one where I never really got it was circuit simulation. It is very advanced mathematics. And it was the math to simulate how a circuit will work, semiconductor circuit. And I kind of faked it, but I never really understood that. It was very difficult.
Have you worked on any cases where you really have gotten to use your chemistry knowledge?
Yeah, there was one involving, certainly some pharmaceutical cases for sure.
Yeah.
I did one on contingency. We never made $1. It was on vinyl siding restoration, and it was a classic American inventor story. This guy literally in his garage come up with a new way to refurbish vinyl siding. Great, I love the case. One of my favorite of all time, but I never made a dime off it.
Do you like those cases? Do you like the chemistry cases better or not? Really?
Oh yeah, for sure. But
well, tell me. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I said, being in Silicon Valley, it's a lot of software around us. But for sure, we get some chemistry cases, and I'm doing now one involving adhesives against 3M. And so that's a lot of fun to have a real chemistry case.
Do you think of yourself as a lawyer with a chemistry background, or a scientist who happened to become a lawyer?
These days, it's very much a lawyer that happens to have a chemistry background.
Do you find it, tell me what advantage do you find that's helpful either with clients or against your opponents? I mean, where do you think it comes in handy, would you say?
Yeah, I think for sure it builds day one some credibility with the clients. They like having the science background. Even in the semiconductor side, it's like they recognize you as a scientist and someone who's not afraid of technology.
Yes.
But I do think the science background can actually hold you back, because you think that people understand these concepts natively, and they don't. And so you think that people might understand a double bond, a triple bond. Well, the last time they talked about it was their sophomore high school chemistry class that they hated.
Yeah.
And so you think people are comfortable with these concepts, but they're not. And so I think it's actually better to learn from scratch.
Right. Well, that makes sense. I mean, I can see, and probably by the way you ask questions, clients can probably tell you do have a science background. I mean, the way you ask questions, perhaps, or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Well, tell me about, you've got some other interesting projects that you've done. Tell me about, the cheesemaker you're doing, and you're reading the Iliad in ancient Greek. These are not things, that normal lawyers even have time for.
Yeah, so let's do the Iliad. So in
Yeah.
the pandemic, I took up ancient Greek, and my kid oldest son was going off to college, do smart kid stuff, go learn philosophy and linguistics and all that. And I used to do the smart kid stuff, in college, and I want to get back into the game. And coming out of the Peace Corps, I'd studied a lot of Arabic, I studied a lot of Berber, and so I was comfortable learning kind of the oddball languages. And so I got a tutor, and I also went to Reed College. And when you go to Reed, before you set foot on campus, you're supposed to have finished reading in English the Iliad, and then you spend the first couple of weeks talking about the Iliad. So it was very much imprinted upon me that this is a big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was curious, and I got a tutor, a wonderful woman. I found her on the internet. There's actually no shortage of ancient Greek tutors on the internet. And it's wonderful. And I've actually taken to memorizing as much as I can. I do it almost every day.
Oh my goodness.
Because the Iliad was not a work of literature. It was an oral composition. It was not written down originally.
Right.
And so it was meant to be memorized. It was meant to be spoken out loud. And it's a wonderful book. It's absolutely wonderful. And it's a poem. And the poetry is completely lost if you go in English. Right. They don't even try to replicate the poetry. The poetry is really built into the ancient Greek syntax, and this dactylic hexameter, the 6 dactyl structure. And it's wonderful in the ancient language, and it's obliterated when you try to translate it. So really it is worth.
So how long did it take you to get through that whole book?
Oh, I'm not done. I've been going for almost 2 years, and I'm 2/3 of the way done. And it's a lot easier now, but it's still, I got, a couple of months to go.
Now, how did you do it? Did you first learn the language and then tackle the book, or you're kind of learning the language and tackling the book at the same time?
It's at the same time.
Yeah. So aren't you having to look up words constantly?
Yeah, well, the nice thing is the Iliad is so, and this is ancient Greek generally, it's so thoroughly chewed up by the scholars that the version I'm reading, every single word is parsed out. So it tells you not only the root, but also if it's a verb, which tense, which conjugation, all that in the meaning.
Wow.
And then the declensions for the nouns and the participle is crazy. The structure. So the number of forms of a verb in ancient Greek, take a guess. The basic verb, Richard, how many forms of that verb do you think there are?
Well, the way you're asking, I'm going to say 6 or 7.
1,100. There's 1,100 forms of a verb, and you just gotta, wrap your head around it a little bit. And this book, the version I'm reading, is very chewed up, and so it helps you with all this stuff. So it's a very.
I'm like scratching my head on what possesses one to even try something like this. I mean,
it's a challenge, and it was the pandemic. I wasn't bored, but it was like it seemed to be a good time to do this.
Tell me how ancient, if you can, tell me how ancient Greek is different from modern Greek.
I don't know. I know that it's very different, but I've not learned modern Greek yet. I want to, so I want to be able to go and travel and all that. But
right. Do you have a penchant for languages? It sounds like you love languages or are able to learn languages easily. Is that not the case?
Yeah, I think so. Although I did try Mandarin once, and that was impossible. I had no framework for it, and I couldn't process Mandarin, so I gave that up pretty quick. But I do French, and I've learned some Italian and some Portuguese, some German, Italian. But that all makes sense to me, and I'm brazen about it. I'm not ashamed to get out there and make mistakes, right? So I'm very brazen about talking. So my wife says I'm a good travel companion.
Yeah. So what is your plan? I mean, you're going to get through this Iliad. Are you going to then leverage that knowledge and try to read the Odyssey, for example? Or what do you do after you learn, after you finish the Iliad?
Yeah, so that's a big question, and I think about it, but I think what I'm going to do is learn. So there's actually three different ancient Greeks, at least. There's the Homeric, which is what I'm reading, right now, the Iliad and the Odyssey is Homeric.
Right.
But then you fast forward 500 years, and then you're in Attic Greek, and that is the Plato and the Aristophanes and Thucydides, and that's actually a somewhat different language. I think I'd like to learn that language and read. What I really want to do is read some of the plays, and then you can go to Greece, and they have one of these ancient amphitheaters, and they'll perform these plays in ancient Greek. And I want to be able to go to those and actually want to understand it. That's kind of a very much a goal of mine. And so, you know.
So, but this is so hilarious. I just can't believe you're doing this. It's just so, it just like, it blows my mind. But what about, have you thought about, what about if you just turn on regular Greek TV? Do you understand what's going on now? Like, I mean, when you listen to modern Greek, can you understand it at least?
I doubt it. I haven't tried that, but I think the answer is no.
That's so amazing. Huh. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, and as if that weren't enough, you're also making cheese at the same time?
Yeah. I'm a chemistry major, and that is like the ultimate transformation is cheese, right? You start with milk, and then you put in your pixie dust, your enzymes and your bacterial cultures, and then you end up with, block of Parmesan. I mean, right? And it's just amazing. And it's delicious. And it's actually better than it's surprisingly better than what you'll get in the fancy cheese markets. And the reason is that a lot of these cheeses will go from quite hard and chalky when they're young to a puddle in the span of a couple of weeks. And so when they're fresh, they do that. They really, it's a colony, right? It's a culture. It's like having a pet. You got to brush it and flip it and wash it and do all this stuff. But as it ages, it will go from this very rigid structure to the bacteria taking over and basically obliterating it and turning it into a puddle. And if you catch it in the middle, it's magic. It is absolutely unlike what you'll ever get in the stores and, the fancy restaurants, because they don't have the shelf life for this stuff. It's got very little shelf life, depending on the cheese. Now, some will go forever, right? But a lot of these will just really, you want to catch it in a very magical window. And unless you make it yourself,
you do this right in your garage, your back. Where do you do this?
Yeah, in the kitchen stove, you do a big old pot and 2 gallons or 4, usually 2 gallons of milk. And then I created I took a wine fridge and you put a humidifier in it because you want like 55 degrees Fahrenheit and about 70% humidity. So it's temperature and humidity. You got to control those two. So I take a wine fridge, I put in a humidifier. There's a little controller you can buy to keep the levels right.
What are some of the other cheeses you made besides Parmesan? Or is that the main
I like blue. I make a good blue cheese. I make Taleggio a lot. There's a French one called Valenciennes, a goat cheese. It's very easy to make. It takes only a couple of weeks. Crottin. There's like oil-aged cheeses. They're wonderful. Really all kinds.
Have you tried making beer? I understand that's also pretty good too.
See, I would like to. I don't want that much beer in my house. I don't. Now I do make wine, but that's at a winemaking club. And so I have a lot of wine in the house, but I don't pop a bottle of wine just any day, right? So beer, I would just open it all the time. So I don't do beer. Not yet, at least.
All right, tell me about this. You're also working on a project to build an irrigation aqueduct.
Yeah, this is cool.
About that.
This is one of the prides of my life. I mean, this really this is neat stuff. So, like I said, I was in the Peace Corps in this little tiny village in Morocco, up in the Atlas Mountains, and they took care of me. What can I say? They took care of me, and they enriched me, and frankly, they helped me get into law school. I mean, I got into Yale because I had a great essay coming out of this village, right? And that's how I got into Yale. I figured I owed him one, and I think I do owe him one. So, life went on and I got the day job and married and kids and the mortgage and all that. And life was kind of clicking along, but I really had the itch. They say you can take the kid out of the Peace Corps, but you can't take the Peace Corps out of the kid. And I had the itch, right? I wanted to get back in touch with it. I also want to show my kids the experience, right? And I didn't want to go back as a tourist. I wanted to go back meaningfully. And so I walked in the door at Rotary. I said, hey, I kind of want to do a water project. Do you guys do water projects? Come on in, kid. And so anyway, I walked through the door at Rotary, and I got to know how that works. And then I decided, yeah, I want to do this. So I threw a party. A lot of things in life start with throwing a good party. And my mom liked Reuben sandwiches, so I threw a party called Rubens for Rotary. And I made these Reuben sandwiches, but mainly what it was, the buffet. And I made my cheeses, right? I made all these cheeses and all these terrines and salamis and the breads and all this stuff. And all handmade, all like high-end, good chow. And also I raised like $15,000 selling Reuben sandwiches. And I'm like, shit, I took their money and I had all this money. Now I better deliver. I got to do this. I got to now do a water project to make good on my promise to these people that showed up at my house, right? So we sent someone up to this village, and they said, hey, remember Steve? And of course they remembered me. And they said, he wants to do a water project. What do you guys need? And I got these photographs back, and it broke my heart. What they wanted to do was they had this old cruddy ditch. And if you think of like a cruddy ditch in North Africa, this is a cruddy ditch in North Africa. And they wanted to line it with concrete in order to more efficiently bring the water from the mountains down into their fields for the irrigation. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm in Silicon Valley. We do self-driving cars, smartphones, cures for cancer. That we can line a ditch with concrete. Like, we can do that. And then the question was, well, what's it cost? Right. And so I start talking on the phone. And I did this all in Berber, by the way, though. These negotiations was all in Berber. And you try to price it out. Well, it comes out to about $100 a meter, a yard, which is pretty, this is steel reinforced and proper foundation. You got to truck the supplies up. So $100 for a meter. Well, how many meters? What was 3,000 meters? So this, I needed $300,000 basically. And I said, wow, okay, game on. And so we did about 5 of these Rubens for Rotary parties. And then Rotary's a machine, a money machine. And once you kind of get going and you meet people and you connect and you schmooze and you get to know people, there's a lot of ways to raise money in Rotary. And I raised about $50,000 in my backyard selling Reuben sandwiches. But then Rotary came through with basically another $250,000.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And so we did it, and it was built basically during the pandemic. I'm going back finally in.
So when you say it was done, you went and built it, or somebody built it?
No, I hired a contractor.
You just paid the money, basically.
Yeah, and it was a little bit of a gut check. The first time you don't really know this guy, and you got $40,000, and you're going to wire it to some stranger in Africa. And hit send, and you just hope it works.
I mean, you kind of wonder, like, why wouldn't he just run off with the money? It's not like you can. That's not like you can sue him for it or anything like that.
Yeah, and I thought I knew that this other contractor I thought was going to do it, but he flaked out actually. So this other guy came recommended from people in the village, and they said, "Oh, Hassan's good. Trust him. This will work." And he's been great. And he's a lifelong friend now. I absolutely love this guy.
Interesting. So how much of that is material versus labor? I'm assuming most of it's material, the $300,000?
It's mostly material. Yeah, it's a lot of rebar. It's a lot of rocks. It's a lot of sand, a lot of concrete. And they got to truck it all up there. It's way up in the mountains.
So is this something where, they engineered the whole thing, or you did that, or you just basically funded the project?
So with Rotary, the projects are always done in connection with a club in that country, in the host country they call it. So we're the international club, and they're the host club and the host country. So the Rotary Club of Marrakesh got involved, and there was a civil engineer tied in with the Marrakesh Club, and he helped design the specifications for this.
And it's all built now. It's working.
Yeah, it's built, and I haven't seen it yet. I've seen tons of photos, tons of videos, but I've not seen it. So I'm going back in a couple of months. I can't wait to go.
Wow, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and the best thing I did with my older kid was take him to go. This right before we broke ground. I wanted to see it all and really check it out. So I took my older kid. This was back in 2019, I think. And it's the best thing I've ever done with my older son is that. And so now I'm going back with my younger son now this time, and I can't wait to go.
Yeah, right. Well, what else is in your plans? You've got so many interesting hobbies. I mean, what else? You must have a long list of things that you're interested in. I mean, you seem like you have such an interesting mind and intellect.
I'm flattered. What else? I mean, I really want to do more Greek. That very much is kind of my long-term plan is, I want to really get a good solid foundation in the ancient Greek. And then as I go on through life and retire, maybe whatever, I want to keep going. That be a big avocation of mine.
Yeah.
Maybe branch into Latin. I also want to basically speak my way around the Mediterranean. So I want to learn, modern Greek. I want to learn Turkish one of these days. But I already know, Portuguese is not really on the Mediterranean, but I know a little Portuguese, I know Spanish, I know French decently, some Italian, and now the Greek. And then I want to learn Turkish and, maybe some Hebrew, who knows. And the Arabic, I can get my way around already.
Do you find that you're interested in learning it? I mean, it's really for you, because in Europe now, you can get by on English. You don't really need to know the language anymore for travel, right? So I'm assuming this purpose is not just so you can get around, because you can do that on it using English nowadays, but it's more just for you, or you find you get...
It's the reaction you get. It's a completely different reaction. When you're there and you start talking in, whatever language, people light up in a way they never will in English. And you get invited into people's homes, and you get the real back tour, right? And for sure, I was just in Portugal this summer, and a lot of people don't speak a lick of English there. I mean, a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't.
Right.
And so it's very gratifying to speak, in these languages. Even if you're just kind of hacking your way through it, people really appreciate it, and it's just fun.
Yeah, right. Here's an off question. Did you watch the show Breaking Bad?
I watched one episode.
Really?
One episode, and
it
didn't grab me, and I don't watch a lot of TV, so it just didn't grab me enough to pull me into it.
I mean, it seems like it's the one show that made a hero out of a chemist, which is why I mean, there are many TV shows where the protagonist is a chemist, but that's one of them. So,
right.
What did your dad think about when you finally went to law school? Was he excited?
He was. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was very excited.
What kind of lawyer was he?
He was municipal bond lawyer.
Okay.
So when cities need to borrow money and whatnot, and kind of a lot of municipal law. So.
Yeah. Well, when you kind of look back at your career now, or when you look at yourself now, successful patent litigator, does it seem? I mean, it seems like it's a very good fit. I mean, you obviously didn't think of this when you were young, but are you, when you look at it now, do you think, wow, this really does suit me really well for all the reasons that we just talked about?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, laws need, and patent laws need in particular, just because there's so many angles to it. There's very much the technical angle, and you need to know like claim construction and all that, and all these patent law doctrines that are all kind of complex. But it's really a person problem, right? It's a people problem, and there's a lot of psychology, a lot of just getting to know your client, what really makes them tick, what makes the other side tick. And then this puzzle, like how do you kind of make your way through this minefield, right? And how do you win? It's fun. It's very fun. And I like just kind of the team management, like growing a team internally, mentoring younger attorneys, and getting that whole team going. It's very powerful and very, very gratifying.
A lot better than working with Erlenmeyer flasks.
Well, nothing wrong with Erlenmeyer. And by the way, those are great for salad dressing. So I have them in my house. I use Erlenmeyers constantly for salad dressing.
I was very bad in chemistry myself. I ended up becoming an engineer. But one of the examples I always tell my kids when they were young about trying to instruct them on good habits was the old chemistry titration experiment. And I used to tell them, when you're building up a habit, you feel like you're getting nowhere, and it's going nowhere. And it's just like the titration experiment. It's white, and it's white, and it's white, and it's white. And one day it turns blue. And that's exactly what it's like. You develop a good habit, you do it every day, or exercise. You don't notice anything. And then one day, all of a sudden, it just turns color.
Right. That's good example.
Yeah. Steve, it's been wonderful chatting with you. I rarely meet lawyers with your extensive background. When you come up with yet another language or a hobby, will you please come back and tell me about it?
Absolutely, Richard. My pleasure.
This is Richard Hsu and Steve Carlson. Thanks.
Thank you.